Hello, I'm Bill Woods. This is RPM. Welcome as we take you out of pit lane and onto the circuit now for the biggest event of the motorsport year. That's right, we're setting up for the super cheap auto Bathurst 1000, scheduled for next weekend. But that's not all.
And Formula One returns with China today. We'll bring you all the latest from the Formula One paddock, plus full highlights of qualifying.
Our cover story this weekend is an expert's eye view of the great race, which will carry more emotion and probably a bigger crowd this year than ever before.
Just like you, I too saw the images on the news of this incredible sight here at Brock's Skyline. But it's not until you actually visit the place yourself and read the thousands upon thousands of personal, heartfelt messages where you feel the full gravity, the impact that Peter Brock had on people's lives. Now, these messages are not only on this wall, they're both sides of the track and they go for ages.
And RPM. That is a prize not to be missed, no matter which badge you prefer. But remember, you must be 25 or over to enter. Now, also a reminder about our Jack's Chats this afternoon. Super Cheap Autos Cameron McConville is our V8 supercar driver who'll be online and answering your questions. Just go to rpmlive.tv and follow the links. Don't forget, you must register beforehand if you want to take part. Now, back to Talladega, the famous circuit playing a leading role as Hollywood gave NASCAR a nod in one of the hot movies of the year, Talladega Nights, The Legend of Ricky Bobby. Now, if you're one of those fans who are angry at the awful treatment that motorsport usually gets on the silver screen, thanks to some stinkers like Driven and Days of Thunder, then don't get too excited. This one is actually a crazy comedy starring Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, and I caught up with them on their recent Sydney tour.
Please be 18.
Ricky!
Wake up, idiot!
You're on fire! You're not on fire, Ricky Bobby! Help me, Jesus! Help me, Tom Cruise!
Absolutely, ma'am. I'd love to sign your baby. You're not going to want to wash that forehead.
We go together like Chinese food and chocolate pudding.
Cal, those are two things that don't really go together. If I say peanut butter and...
Ladies.
Yep. Jelly.
Jelly. Would you like to put jelly on a lady?
Well, welcome to Sydney, guys. Great to have you out here.
Thank you. Good to be here.
You guys did a lot of research into this film. Can you give us an idea what you did to find out a bit more about NASCAR racing? I know you went to some events and that. There's some good shots of that. So,
well, I started 15 years ago on a little movie called Days of Thunder, and I went to pit crew school on that one and learned a bit about the sport, and then of course it grew exponentially over the years. Then a young man named Will Ferrell called me up and said, would you like to go back into NASCAR with a promotion this time as a driver?
This time you get to drive.
And of course I leaped at the chance.
that's awesome. Well, you guys wouldn't have been aware when you were making the film, but what I found a little bit funny was Juan Pablo Montoya, who is going to drive NASCAR next year. So,
and he announced it when we were in Chicago promoting the movie at the race.
If only he were French, but I mean, Colombian's close enough.
Well, he's thinking about changing his nationality, from what I hear.
How serious were the NASCAR fraternity in, getting you into the feel of things? Like, did they take that side of it very seriously? Did they want you to really feel it?
They were just, we couldn't have made the movie without them. They were instrumental in providing us access to the races, to the drivers, to you name it. They were great.
You remember we were talking to a driver and he said, oh, you're in a movie, huh? Doing a NASCAR movie. And we said, yeah. And Will explained to him, yeah, I'm married in the movie, and then he's my best friend, and he takes my wife. And he's like,
just like the real deal. I start losing, and then he takes my wife. They're like, oh yeah. So it's pretty realistic.
Real realistic then, huh?
Watch the mail for that invitation to the wedding, because I want you there.
What?
Baby, he's not gonna come to the wedding.
Cal, do you realize the implications of your actions right now?
What's the implication mean?
And John, I only found out an hour ago that you actually went to a V8 supercar race, which is sort of our version of NASCAR, closest thing.
Yeah, up in Queensland, and I went to a demolition derby up there too. That was pretty fun.
You actually entered in the demolition derby.
Well, our film crew did.
But
but yeah, the drivers from the film crew did. They bought like an old station wagon at the junkyard and spray painted it, and that was really fun.
Are you a bit afraid, Will, that the on-screen kiss with Ricky and Jean Girard might become something historic? Like, you know, when they do those That's Hollywood films and tributes, that could be right up there.
It could be. I think it already is. I mean, I hate to pat myself on the back. Or, you know, I mean, we took some chances there, and I'm not gonna say, I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you that I didn't like it. I enjoyed it.
As a sign of humility, if you kiss me on the lips now, I will return to Paris and you will never see me again in NASCAR.
The answer is never. Do you hear me? Never, ever.
I have to ask too, Ricky Bobby, I mean, where did that come from? Like, we've had Greg Biffle, Dick Trickle. Were they in mind when you thought of Ricky?
Ricky Bobby is just, you can't help but have a smile on your face when you say Ricky Bobby. Makes you feel warm and fuzzy, right?
Yeah.
And before I let you go, guys, finally, shake and bake. I mean, I know, I haven't been to a race meeting since I saw the film, but I know it's going to catch on here. Have you had any evidence of what's going to happen over there?
Yeah, well, from all indications in the States, that is going to be a popular catchphrase. I get it a lot already.
Yeah.
Well, you have a lot to answer for, but I thank you very much for your time.
Shake and bake.
Shake and bake.
There are a few other very personal questions regarding that on-screen kiss, which unfortunately, because children are watching this program, we couldn't leave in that interview. Our apologies for that. This edition of RPM runs 2 hours, a little longer than the movie, actually, and it's not quite as funny. Well, it's not intended to be. Coming up on this special extended edition of RPM, the Australian Rally Champions, Toyota's Simon and Sue Evans. Champ Car's Catherine Legg, blazing her trail to the Lexmark Indy 300. Messages from the mountain, a panoramic preview ahead of next weekend's great race, plus a pair of Bathurst champions, current title holder Mark Scaife and another former winner, Greg Murphy. They'll give us their thoughts along with a couple of Ford Flyers. And we take you to China for all the action from Formula One, plus Neil Compton's preview as one of the closest ever battles for the world title comes down to 3 races. Best of luck to both of them. That is the team and Simon Pagenaud, whichever way they go. On our way to a break now, and here's a look at some of the best of 10 years of RPM, courtesy of the best editing team in the business.
On the run down to turn 1, he's going to take the lead here. Schumacher is going to have to tuck in behind him. Alonso is behind Fisichella. Goes round the outside of Michael Schumacher, and he's going to take bang wheels for second place. And we've got carnage at the back.
Actually, the two McLarens get into each other. Oh, we got a roll of it. Heidfeld's done a triple roll.
But now what's going to happen is he tries to rejoin. That is crazy. I mean, that was
absolutely ludicrous. You know what? Absolutely no sympathy for Paul. My heart goes out to Alex.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Tag's not doing himself any favors there at all.
The new world record! 277 feet, 5 inches!
Went up to the approach and I went off the top and I was just flying. Absolutely flying. I peered down at the spectators and they were so far down.
Look alive, girl, look alive on the mountain. Ain't coming around, lay it out for me and get it straight, just get it straight today, cause the all in all is gone away. It's like
It's pretty close to 900 Ks. Yeah, that is awesome at 500 feet. So what do you think? That's made my life.
Penrite lubricants stand up to the toughest test, even under the hottest, most hellish conditions. How the devil do they do it? Penrite, an obsession with oil.
Well, there's a definite buzz around the SBR workshop. The guys are in here nice and early, finishing off the car, getting it prepared, make sure every nut and bolt on that #1 Caltex Falcon is absolutely perfect. The truck's getting loaded up with about a ton more gear than we take to a normal championship round. What's it all about? Bathurst, the big one. It is coming up and it's going to be so exciting this year. I'm going to show you a couple of things that we do different to the car than we do to a normal championship round. Come with me. And so here's an addition that we put in the car. Now these little elastic straps here. Now they actually hold the belts up and out of the way. So when we dive into the car, I can actually put my arm all the way through, put the belts on, plug them all in, and that way they're done nice and quick. And we have to, because we have to do a driver change in 15 seconds. Now, one thing that differs from a normal championship round is a mandatory brake pad change that we have to do at Bathurst race. Now, we have these rather large calipers, brake pad calipers, and you'll see the guys go under the front of the car during the brake pad change, pop these into the pads. And what they do is actually push the pads apart and pushes these pistons back into the caliper so they can get the new fat brake pads, and they'll slide straight back in, hook them back up, and that way we've got brand new brakes to finish the rest of the race. And they can do it in 16 seconds. Try and get your local mechanic to do it that quick. Now you see plenty of these things up and down pit lane. It's what we call the refueling rig. So this is what puts the fuel in the car every time it comes in for its pit stop during the race day. Now it holds 120 litres of fuel and puts that into the car in about 26 to 27 seconds, so very quick. And we'll use about 600 litres of fuel over the day per car. Well, that's just a couple of things that we do differently during the Bathurst weekend. Make sure you tune in because it's going to be one of the best and emotional races you've ever seen at Bathurst. Who's going to win? Look, I don't know, it's anyone's guess, but I'm really hoping it's going to be the #1 Caltex Falcon. It's about time the Blue Oval got a Bathurst across the line. See you soon.
And I'm pleased to announce I made the top 10 of the Miss Indy contest, Mr. Indy contest, that is. There was a Freudian slip. We'll be back soon with Lee Diffie's Bathurst preview, talking about Freud. And after that, 4 of the top V8 supercar drivers will join us for a chat. Stay with us.
It's a monumental accident. It's already a crash. Planning out a crash, turn into obsession. Hell yeah. They do not like each other. Family, battery is down and
Well, every year it gets tougher, the twists of fate more cruel, the stakes higher, and the win, therefore, more satisfying. Bathurst just grows and grows. This year, recent events have made it even more special, as Lee Diffie reports.
It waits patiently like it does every year. Its pit lane complex stands proudly as the centre stage. The grandstands ready for their guests. And although this mountain has seen it all, it's never experienced life without its number one tenant. This is the single most important event on the V8 calendar. It's also part of a thrilling championship. But the underlying message next weekend can be seen everywhere. If you plan on coming to this year's Super Cheap Auto 1000 here at Bathurst, one thing will be very obvious very quickly. In the weeks since Peter Brock's tragic death, Mount Panorama has become a shrine to the 9-time winner. And now race organisers have paid their own special tribute. As a mark of respect to Brock, the entire front row will remain vacant for the start of this year's great race.
Oh, the town's ready. We're certainly looking forward once again to a big year, and we're expecting big crowds. All our motels here are already stating that they're booked out, and even the neighbouring towns and cities around here are saying that they're already booked out. So we're certainly doing the best we can to accommodate all these people coming into the city.
Whether the city of Bathurst is ready for this pilgrimage is not up for negotiation. That's all too easy to see. And it's in writing. Words filled with tears. Words full of years. Lessons in the language of loving life and motorsport at the same time. Something Brock was a professor in. Just like you, I too saw the images on the news of this incredible sight here at Brock's skyline. But it's not until you actually visit the place yourself and read the thousands upon thousands of personal, heartfelt messages where you feel the full gravity, the impact that Peter Brock had on people's lives. Now, these messages are not only on this wall, they're both sides of the track and they go for ages. And the Bathurst City Council dearly want to preserve these messages. The engineers have told them, sadly, they're losing the battle because sunshine and the concrete are already starting to fade some of those messages. Now, the messages may fade, but the memory of Peter Brock and what he achieved here on the mountain never will. And that's why race organisers are expecting the largest crowd ever.
But they'll want to come, they'll want to make their tribute, they want to be here when his cars are displayed, when people remember him, to see that vacant spot on the pits, to go up to Brock's skyline. That's what people will want to do, so I imagine it'll take on a different dimension altogether this year.
And Rod Harvey is qualified to say so. He knows plenty about the sport's history as the manager of the National Motor Racing Museum at Mount Panorama. But even he's not sure of the magnitude of this year's Bathurst. One thing Harvey and the Bathurst City Council are certain about, though, is incorporating the Brock name and the museum forever.
Yeah, Council's got some money in its budget for this coming year, and we're going to put a new wing on the National Motor Racing Museum, and we see it also fitting that the wing of the extensions will be named the Brock Wing.
That's the appropriate thing to do. Peter Brock had a huge role in the history of Mount Panorama racing here, and that's absolutely the way to go, is to name something after him in the National Motor Racing Museum for all to come and make their tribute.
Coupled with the new Brock Wing, which will include other racing exhibits in addition to Brock's, the council will ensure a statue of Peter will be permanently placed at a site yet to be determined, although it's likely to be near the museum at the base of the mountain. No doubt a location that's easily accessible for the fans to pay their respects. Something they've been doing at the mountain ever since that tragic day.
It's been incredible. I mean, when the announcement came through late on the Friday afternoon, that's when we started getting the phone calls, people wanting to know what was happening, where they could go and make a tribute, and we've been going along with that. Brock's skyline seemed to be the place that most people gravitated towards, but we did say that we have a condolence book here at the museum, and for people to come and put in their tributes, and we would of course send it down to the family.
And Brock's other family, the city of Bathurst, is still showing it appreciates everything he did for it.
look, he's done so much for this community, both internationally and nationally. Peter's recognised Bathurst as his second home, and he's made, wherever he went, he mentioned Mount Panorama and made this place so well known.
While the multi-million-dollar pit complex is the circuit's most recent upgrade, there's a new kid in town. And all of these improvements can in some way be attributed to the way Brock put Mount Panorama on the map. One of the best things about coming here year after year is it doesn't change. Bathurst is Bathurst. However, something new that you will notice this year is this 7-storey, 130-room hotel outside the Chase. And it's huge. It's changed the face of the Chase and has added an edge to the venue, something Brock felt would work, and it seems the locals agree.
As the more progression we have in it, and the more obviously there is visually to see, the better it gets. The interest is, the profile is getting increased.
And yes, one of the apartments ending in 05 belongs to Brock's estate. Bathurst has always said Peter referred to it as his second home, but perhaps it's his natural one.
After the break, we'll have the first of our driver interviews as we count down to the biggest weekend of all. Next on RPM, Greg Murphy, Mark Winterbottom, Mark Scaife and Glenn Seaton. Then Formula One, the World Championship battle rolls into one of the tightest contests ever. We'll check out China qualifying and preview tonight's Grand Prix. Haven't had quite as many starts at Bathurst yet, Mark Winterbottom. Now, you've had a few. And not too many drivers can nail this big event in their first 1 or 2 or even 3 or 4 attempts, and some are still trying. Do you feel you are now ready? Have you got all the attributes, do you think, to nail the #1 position?
It's a very tough race, and you can look at the past winners and see the amount of experience that's won that. This is my 3rd start there. I'm pretty confident that we've got the team to do it. Sandown was obviously a big confidence booster, but I've got a bit of experience with Bridie there, who's won in '98, and myself, who's been there a few times, but I think we can do the job this year.
Well, that's the other big factor. I mean, you personally may feel like you're ready to do your thing, that you know the track well enough to get the pace right and do it consistently. But that's the other big aspect, isn't it? Having the team work for you, having your co-driver work with you. And that's something that this particular team hasn't always been able to get right in recent years. How's it going?
It's going very well. I mean, we're getting along well. Bridie and myself, we enjoy the same car setups. We get along really well. So I started the race at Sandown. He qualified. He finished. We both trust each other's ability 100%. So in an enduro, that's really a strong key to have.
Are you going to follow that same plan at Bathurst?
I think so. I've obviously got my championship to think of, but to put my faith into Bridie, I've got no problem, because I know how good he is, and Sandown, we obviously were after the championship too, but we want to fight, and we're going to fight to win. So we're going to take that approach to Bathurst. If we can do the job there, we'll come out with a strong championship points haul. If not, we're going to go trying.
Now, Mark's...
How many dreams remain? This is a feeling too strong to contain. The hardest years, the darkest years, the roaring years, the fallen years. These shall not be forgotten years. The hardest years, the wildest years, the desperate and divided years. We will remember.
What if in one split second, your actions
Put a friend's life at risk.
My partner's been hit. I need a bus now.
SVU, 8:30 Monday on 10.
I like the way you move.
And Mark Scaife will go back to back. At Bathurst, he secures another Australian touring car title. Greg Murphy and the Kmart team are the champion at Bathurst.
We're back on RPM, a 2-hour special. More drivers in the chair to preview the great race next weekend. And right now in the studio we have the one and only Glenn Seaton with the one and only Greg Murphy. Hang on, if you're both one and only, Never mind, that doesn't work, does it? Anyway, we'll start with Glenn. Mate,
you still got it, Billy.
Oh, I think so, but I'm losing it fast. It's been a tough year, obviously, not full-time racing. How hard was it to step back into that chair for Sandown?
Naturally, the more miles you do, the better you get. There's no doubt about that. And I suppose the little miles I did throughout the year went to Sandown, and no, I was quite happy of what I did, and we kept the thing on the road, which is the important thing, and brought it back to the pits in good shape and handed it back to James. So, no, I was pretty happy with that. And since Sandown, we've had another test day, and we've come a long way since then. So I'm looking forward to Bathurst, especially getting up there.
I'll get onto the testing in a minute, but what have you done to prepare yourself this year for these endurance races, given, as I said, that you haven't had as much time in the V8 seat?
Yeah, really, it's a really difficult one, Bill, because naturally you only get 6 test days each team, so it's pretty limited to what the co-drivers can do. But a lot of my stuff's been doing the 3-seater ride car for the Stone Brothers Racing, and also I've actually got my go-kart back out again and had a bit of a run in that.
I heard that.
Up at Bundaberg, we did a 3-hour race up there, and that was really enjoyable. Very similar to Bathurst, 3 compulsory pit stops and also 2 drivers, so that was really good.
Murph, by your standards, it's been a difficult year, and it's funny, we're watching the play onto this interview then, and we're watching one of your victories, and you said, seems like a long time ago. It's a funny business, isn't it? But, I mean...
Funny's an interesting word for it.
Yes, well, it's one weekend, though, can make it all right again, can't it?
Yeah, it can, without a doubt. I mean, it's been a... Oh, there's plenty of words, tumultuous sort of season. It's been very tough, and tough for everybody, not just me and Cam, but the guys that have put the effort in. And when you sort of have a bit of success last year that we had, and had some good speed and finished on the podium quite a number of times, to come into a season where you're actually quite confident at the beginning, to have it sort of work out the way it's worked out this year, it's pretty frustrating and very head scratching as well. A lot of head scratching going on to try and work out what the hell's been happening. So, you know, Bathurst can turn that around. It has done before, and you know, we need to have a really, really good car going up there, though. It's just so fast and so competitive. There's so many teams out there. You know, listening to Scafey before talking about it, you know, he's very focused on it and knows they're going to have to do a very good job. You know, even if you are put down as red hot favourites, just, you know, you shouldn't take that for granted.
But that's the big thing. The car simply has to be driven now as if it were a 3-race sprint weekend. Given that, if you've had a pattern of unreliability through the course of the season, how does that affect you mentally? Can you still get in that car and feel like you can drive like that? Or is there something in the back of your mind going, what's around the next corner?
Well, I don't think you can go into it thinking that. I mean, you don't go into any race, you know, expecting something to go wrong. Obviously, having a few problems like that this year is pretty frustrating, and it sort of takes the wind out of your sails when it does happen. You know, and Sandown was one of those situations when we're actually looking like going pretty good on that weekend to have something go wrong. But you know. And that was something that we've never had go wrong before. So I've never struck that in the years I've been racing V8 supercars. So you don't expect it, and I don't think you prepare for it because you can't, and you just go out there and do the job. And everyone prepares everything so well these days. The teams do such a great job. You prepare mentally and physically, and you get in and just go out there and hope that it's all going to work out.
Glenn, you had a brake problem at Sandown, which seemed to be a team problem, not just a car problem. Has that been sorted?
Well, yeah, they've done a lot of analysis from Sandown on the components and also the fluids that we're using. So they believe they've overcome the problems, and the test day really showed that. We had no hint of that sort of problem come back up again. But as you say, Bathurst is one of those events that so many things can happen. I've been there, this will be my 23rd time this year, and I've seen everything happen at Bathurst.
You've had everything happen to you.
I've had everything happen at Bathurst, exactly right. But it's one of those events that we still all strive for every year to get back there. It's just one of those pieces of road that is just awesome to drive on, and I'm unbelievably thoroughly looking forward to getting back there.
We'll take a break soon and then we'll come back, but with you two guys. But before we do, testing, Glenn, you mentioned that. Was it a good test? Did it help the team for Bathurst, apart from the brakes?
Definitely, no doubt. Both cars were really strong last Tuesday at Queensland, and towards the Bathurst setup, which is what you usually run up there. You usually run quite a different setup than you do in most of the other circuits you go to, because of the speed and the undulation around there and the amount of travel that the car uses. So you've got to sort of arrest all that sort of stuff. So our setup was towards that sort of direction, and actually the speed was very good, so we're going to Bathurst pretty confident.
Greg, what about you? You've had a test as well. How was that? Any use?
They're funny these days, you know, going testing it, sometimes you don't get a lot from them. And we tried some stuff and went down some certain paths, and then we learned a little bit. The weather played a part. It was sort of a very changeable sort of day up at Winton. The wind came up early or mid-morning and was very windy, and when things change, you sort of start the day in one way and then it changes and goes a different direction. It's sort of hard to relate the stuff that you've found or learnt or felt throughout the whole day. So I think we came away with a bit of an idea of what we want to do at Bathurst, but again, it wasn't one of the best days we've had up there.
Okay, we'll take a break now. We'll come back and we'll keep talking to Glenn Seaton and Greg Murphy.
He almost got airborne. See the amount of air that went under the car. Ambrose has had a massive shot. So Greg Murphy's involved. 4 cars, the track is jammed. The track is jammed.
Anywhere I go, I'ma jump on your case. Anything I do will be done in bad taste.
Obviously, some serious disagreement as to what went on the racetrack there.
Greg Murphy and Marcus Ambrose 2 coming to a WWF venue near you.
We had nothing on those guys.
No, it's a shame, isn't it? Yeah, we need more of that in Australia. No, we don't. I'm only kidding. Please don't try this at home. I posed this question, or I wanted to pose this question to every driver this weekend, and hopefully I will at some stage. But let's start with you guys in the studio here a week away. Is there anything about this event, Murph, that you still feel after all these years that you need to nail down a little better? A part of the circuit, a part of the preparation, anything like that? Or do you think...
Bet another half-dozen wins would do it, I reckon. That'd be fine.
Half a dozen?
Yeah,
that's
10. Oh,
Mate,
sorry.
23 times and not even once yet. 22 times. 23rd will be the once.
You reckon it'll be it?
You're going to have to finish, Murph, you're going to have to finish second this year.
I'd just like to finish something at the moment, that'd be good.
Well, you had one of the best laps, or if not the best lap ever seen at
hopefully
Bathurst.
it's the best one.
Well, maybe the better one is still to come. Yeah, that's a good
knows?
point. But, is there anything you feel like I can get better?
It's hard. I haven't really thought about that before. I mean, Glenn, I said before, I just love the place. It is just such a special bit of road, and I just can't. I can't wait to get there every year, just to get out there for the first lap and get on the track and attack it, because it's just such a great thing. But I don't know. You get pretty comfortable there. I felt pretty comfortable before. Some days you're not comfortable. Some days, when the car's not working quite right, especially across the top of the mountain and it's moving around a bit, you really have to suck it in and concentrate, because it will catch you out. And there's speed to be found and maintained in so many places, and it's a hard thing to do around there.
So aspects of it might become a problem, you're saying, depending on how the weekend unfolds.
Absolutely, certainly.
Is that the same with you, Glenn, or is there something that has always bugged you a little bit?
Bathurst?
Apart from the obvious.
No, there's places on the track that are quite daunting, there's no doubt, and that's the thing about Bathurst. You get there and you come up sort of out of BP cutting, or used to be called BP cutting, and up over the hill, and you can't actually see around the corners everywhere you go, and being able to arrive around there and get that right every year is an awesome feeling. And I suppose getting across McPhillamy Park is a really important part of the track, and a really enjoyable part of the track, getting across there. But probably coming down to the chase, you always have that sort of, is the car going to get through there flat, or are we going to be able to make it? If we get through there flat as often as you can, it's a really quick lap time, you know that for sure. And these cars being the speed that they're doing now and the edges they're on, it's quite difficult to do that consistently lap after lap. You can do it in qualifying when you're on good tyres, but when the tyres get a bit used and the car gets a little bit nervous in the rear, it's quite difficult to do that. So being able to achieve that every year, and being able to just go back there every year and achieve our ultimate goal, which is to drive around Bathurst, is just awesome.
Now, a big part of the winning, of course, is the guy who's on the other, is in the seat with you. Now, not at the same time, of course. Cameron McConville, a quick form guide on the two co-drivers. Of course, one of the worst feelings at Bathurst is sitting in the garage when the car is out of the race. Cameron McConville, are you confident? Yeah,
I don't have to worry about that at all. I've been pretty fortunate in the years that I've been up there. I've had some pretty great co-drivers, and I've been their co-driver. And Cam fits into the category, you know, you just relax when he's in the car, you don't have to worry about it, and he knows the job that he has to do.
And he seems a very compatible kind of guy too, in terms of the whole scheme of things. He seems like an easy guy to get on with.
Easy to work with, and you know, we're very similar as well in what we want. I mean, the feedback that we give at the tests and that kind of thing when we're working together is pretty much the same, and we pretty much want the car to be exactly the same. So that's a big bonus.
Now, Glenn, you by contrast have got a bit of an unknown quantity. I mean, James has had a run up there in a Holden, but second time out, he's starting to come good though. This is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I think he's had his experience last year with Bathurst, and naturally, as soon as you get that first experience, you take it a bit more casual the next year along. So I think he'll do pretty good. He's done great the second half of this year, and I think he'll be a really enjoyable combination to work with up there. We get on really well, and if we can get there with a really strong car, I reckon it'll be a really enjoyable time for both of us.
Well, there's a lot more we could talk about, but of course we still have a few days to go and a little more time to do it. So even though we've run out of time here, I'm sure we'll talk more a little later on before the race starts. Greg Murphy, Glenn Seaton, thanks for your time this weekend.
Thanks, Bill.
And of course, best of luck to all the drivers who've taken their time out to talk to us today. A reminder now, our Jack's Chat is happening straight after RPM, and the man we've just spoken about, Cameron McConville, will be online. Go to rpmlive.tv. You must register now to take part in Jack's Chat. Next, Formula One. It's a big round coming up today, and Neil Crompton will tell us all about it. We'll also have extended highlights of yesterday's qualifying session, so stay with us. The Chinese Formula One Grand Prix will be on your screens tonight, and Neil Crompton is on your screen right now to preview a critical stage of the series. Well, they've all been critical this year, actually. 2 points separating Alonso and Schumacher in Schumacher's final year. What a finale. Neil, crunch the numbers, please.
Looks very good, doesn't it? It's going to be a very entertaining several races with China today and then Japan next week when we're up at Bathurst, and then the same weekend we're at the Gold Coast for the Indy Carnival. We've got the final race in Brazil, but you're right, 30 points on offer, 3 wins at stake here, but there's only 2 points between Fernando and Michael, so it is a fascinating scenario. It could go any which way, and big nail biter.
And they've been testing, and a bit of a contrast between the opposing teams.
Yeah, this is a fascinating one. You can imagine the commitment from both these organisations, but in the case of Ferrari, they've done 8 days, believe it or not, across 3 different circuits and a total of about 3,000 kilometres, where by contrast what Renault have done is a fewer number of days but a higher number of kilometres. In fact, they've done about 5,300 kilometres, but they did it across 6 days in Spain and then in the UK at Silverstone. Heikki Kovalainen, who's got a race seat with Renault next year, was the quickest in Spain. They also ran Nelson Piquet Jr., who'll be testing for them for 2007, and he was quick as well. Now, both the teams and certainly all the key drivers are suggesting that tyres are essentially going to resolve this championship this year, and that's absolutely the way it's played out. When you look at what they've been doing in testing, Billy, they've done a gazillion miles on all the different tyre options that they're going to run now through until the end of the year.
And tyres, of course, will be an even greater factor given the uncertainty of the weather this weekend.
Which is the big question mark. It's been terrible up there. Overcast, humid, wet. A much different equation to the way the tyre engineers predicted it, and the car engineers were expecting it to be much, much warmer, so they've chosen tyres accordingly. In those conditions, the Michelin's been the tyre to have, and we'll see that shortly. But in the intermediate conditions, the Michelin's absolutely flogged the Bridgestones, which is pretty much the way it was in Hungary a couple of races back.
And finally, reliability. Engines, not quite the steady factor that we thought they might be.
Well, Felipe Massa's had an engine change after Friday, so a little question mark over the Ferrari there. But remember, at the very last Grand Prix, we had a scenario where Fernando Alonso didn't finish, but reliability's been very, very good for both the teams throughout the year. You know, Fernando's only failed to finish 2 of the races that we've had thus far, and Michael only with that accident here in Australia. Otherwise, he's done an outstanding job, so reliability's been a big factor.
Now, of course, qualifying will give us a big clue as to how this weekend will unfold. Recently, of course, Ferrari has managed to park itself ahead of Alonso, generally speaking, but now that we're on these little flyaway legs, it's going to be very interesting to see if the trend can be reversed. And as we mentioned, what if we have a situation where Ferrari or Renault gets ahead of their opponent, but the changes come with the weather and the tyres are in a different situation? We'll find out. Let's have a look at qualifying.
Well, 3 races to go, 2 drivers battling for the World Championship, only 2 points separating them. It couldn't be better set up. And here today in Shanghai, we have a real lottery in qualifying with a wet track, more rain falling now. It's just started raining a little bit more heavily in the last 3 or 4 minutes. There's a little bit of head games going on between the Ferrari team and Renault. Some words being exchanged on both sides. Lots of mind games. Pat Simmons, the technical boss of Renault, saying that psychologically he feels that Alonso is better equipped for this championship showdown than Michael Schumacher. And those are strong words from the man who engineered Schumacher to 2 world titles back in the mid-1990s. Put those words to Ross Brawn or Michael Schumacher at Ferrari, and they say, listen, Pat Simmons was put up to saying those things, and we don't really believe that he believes them himself. But certainly an awful lot going between the 2 teams. Let's have a look at what tyres that Coulthard is thinking of. He's thinking of the intermediate tyre, and this is the one we saw absolutely outstanding in Hungary. The reason why Jenson Button was so fast there and able to win that Grand Prix. Also made Fernando Alonso very quick as well. Really the only choice, Martin. You've driven that tyre on the Red Bull. It really is a remarkable tyre, isn't it?
Absolutely extraordinary. When we were doing the most recent technical pieces at Silverstone, it was raining very heavily, and still that intermediate tyre was gripping. It's got such a big window of operation. They can run it, as we saw in Hungary, all the way until it's virtually a dry track. So I think the Michelin runners out there this afternoon do have the upper hand in these conditions, unless it ends up going to full wet conditions, standing water. And then I think there's not a lot to choose between the full wet tyres of Bridgestone and Michelin. This is going to be a very tough afternoon. Now, this morning on a nearly dry track on dry tyres, Michael Schumacher did a 1:40. So Raikkonen's 1:46 on this very wet track is not too bad at all, actually. It's a long way around here, 3 1/3 miles, 5.5 kilometres. So, and Coulthard's gone second. So, as expected, those Michelin Inters really are the business right now.
We're looking at Giancarlo Fisichella, but the fastest man out on the racetrack at the moment is his teammate Fernando Alonso, leading this World Championship by 2 points, and he has set the fastest sector of anybody so far in sectors 1 and 2. Raikkonen has the benchmark at the moment with a 1:46.0 as we go into the final 10 minutes of this knockout session. Still some big names yet to set a time. Michael Schumacher and Felipe Massa are still in the pits, surveying the scene. Fisichella goes fastest, dipping into the 1:44s, but Alonso will be quicker than that. A 1:44.1, 6/10 quicker than his teammate in the same conditions. So, less than 2 minutes to go for these guys to get across the start-finish line and start their laps.
Okay, Nico, you've only got 1 time lap, so you need to get yourself some space. Find some space, 1 time lap, mode 1 for that lap.
Okay, well, he'll back off now. Will DC back off as well? Yes, he does. The trouble is they're all going to be tripping over each other down at that hairpin as they try to find themselves a couple of 100 metres. I mean, remember, Alonso was penalised for the turbulent air affecting Massa back in Monza, where you're certainly sending something back here to upset the people behind you, but they've managed to find themselves a bit of a gap. Oh, and Rosberg struggling to keep it on the road and doesn't do so down in turn 1. His 1 flying lap is wasted.
And it could cost him dear because he's 15th, only 1 place away from safety with his teammate Webber, Ralf Schumacher and Trulli all looking to improve. We're riding on board with Takuma Sato, currently 21st, and he's having problems tucked up behind one of the Williams as well.
And that, I think, was probably Rosberg recovering to the racetrack, and an armful of understeer down into the hairpin. But Sato then underway. Who's getting it? There's nobody out there going faster in their first sectors than they've been earlier on in the session. Car 10 has been off the track, which is Rosberg, as we know. So nobody out there doing anything special at the moment.
Yeah, Michael Schumacher's first sector is 3/10 slower than his best so far. So that's about how much the weather is affecting Schumacher's lap as everybody else's. Not a single personal best then from any of the cars out there in Sector 1.
Some people haven't even bothered. Alonso, Fisichella, De La Rosa, Raikkonen and Liuzzi, the top 5, haven't bothered. Nor has Scott Speed and Robert Dornbos. They've stayed in the pits. They think they've done enough to get through this first stage and to be one of the 16 that go through.